The silence shattered as claws ripped flesh, and the night air filled with a dying scream. The cub crouched low, heart racing, eyes wide as his mother's teeth tore into the struggling antelope. Blood splashed across the grass like spilled fire. The world was merciless, brutal, without pause. A single mistake meant death, and the cub felt it press against his chest. The antelope kicked once, twice, then silence swallowed the land. The mother growled, panting hard, her face drenched in red triumph. The cub stepped closer, trembling at the scent of warm iron. His innocence cracked as the law of survival carved itself into him. A storm rolled over the horizon, black clouds pulsing with lightning. The savanna stretched endless, vast, unforgiving. Death was not an ending here. It was a beginning. A rule written into every blade of grass. The cub's first lesson came not from play, but from the raw violence of life itself. He understood nothing and everything all at once. The cub's ears rang with thunder, but his eyes fixed on the lifeless body at his paws. Hunger and horror clashed within him. The lioness licked her muzzle, blood dripping, and said, "This is life. Watch, learn." He flinched at her tone, sharp and absolute. Lightning tore the horizon open, searing the world white for a heartbeat. Shadows danced across the cub's face, twisting innocence into fear. His paws pressed deeper into mud, as if anchoring himself to survive. His chest heaved with breaths too fast, too shallow. Above, vultures circled, black dots in a storm-painted sky. He felt their gaze burn into him, waiting for weakness. The ground seemed to pulse with the rhythm of death, echoing louder than his tiny heartbeat. The cub was no longer shielded by play. He stood at the edge of nature's law, trembling. His lesson had begun, and there was no turning back. The lioness dragged the kill deeper into the grass, her muscles rippling with strength. The cub stumbled forward, eyes wide, nose twitching at the iron scent. He whispered with a shiver, "It's too much." His mother growled low, not at him but at the world, as if daring it to challenge her prize. The cub watched blood seep into soil, painting it darker than night. He stepped closer, paws trembling, his reflection visible in a pool of red. Thunder rolled, low and threatening, like the growl of unseen predators. The storm grew heavier, fat drops of rain stinging his fur. He blinked, shivering, trapped between fear and fascination. Every beat of his heart hammered against the silence of death. His mother tore flesh with sharp teeth, each sound a brutal reminder. The cub was learning, but learning burned worse than hunger. Rain poured harder, each drop drumming against the earth like war drums. The cub blinked rapidly, soaked fur clinging to his tiny frame. He sneezed, shivering, and whispered, "Cold." His mother ignored him, jaw deep in the carcass, ripping meat with efficiency born of survival. The cub's paws sank into mud, pulling free with sticky pops. He stared at her, at the blood, at the storm, and felt himself shrinking smaller. Lightning cracked above, striking a distant tree, and the cub yelped in fear. The lioness lifted her head, eyes fierce, gaze cutting into him. She said, "Fear feeds no one." He froze, the weight of her words pressing like stone on his fragile chest. His stomach twisted with hunger and dread, pulling him into conflict he did not understand. The world was vast and merciless, and he was only a shadow inside it. The carcass lay half devoured, bones gleaming pale beneath torn flesh. The cub edged closer, eyes wide, his nose pressed toward the steaming wound. He whispered, "Must I?" His mother's stare was sharp, piercing, as if refusal itself was death. He pressed his teeth clumsily into the hide, gagging at the metallic taste, his tiny body trembling with every bite. The storm raged, lightning flashing like knives across the sky. His small growl was weak, almost pitiful, but it was something. His mother lowered her head, watching, her face unreadable. She said, "Now you begin." The cub chewed, each bite breaking his innocence, stitching survival into his veins. The savanna around them drowned in storm, but here, under the weight of blood and thunder, The cub's first hunt was sealed into memory. A beginning written in red. The storm passed, leaving the savannah drenched and shimmering with pale dawn. The cub blinked against the light, his fur heavy with dampness. His mother lay close, eyes half closed, but her breath was steady, strong. The cub pressed against her flank, trembling with a hunger that gnawed more than his belly. She whispered without words, her warmth the only shield he knew. The world smelled of wet grass and blood, a reminder of the night's cruelty. Above, the vultures had gone, carried away by sunlight's return. The cub stared at her face, streaked with scars, and felt both safety and fear. He whispered to himself, "I want to be like her." His chest swelled with pride and dread. Her paws shifted, covering him in shadow. She said nothing, but her silence was louder than thunder. The cub belonged to her world now, and her world was survival. The pride emerged from tall grass, their shapes cutting against the horizon. A scarred male lion, mane dark and heavy, growled low as he approached. The cub froze, heart slamming, ears flat. The lioness stepped between them, her muscles taut, her stare unyielding. The cub peeked from her shadow, small and shaking. The older male sniffed the air, his face carved with dominance, his eyes fixed on the tiny figure behind her. The cub whispered, "Who is he?" The answer was not spoken, but lived in the tension that stretched like rope. The lioness snarled, low and deliberate, daring him closer. The cub pressed his paws into mud, every breath tight. Around them, lionesses of the pride circled, their gazes cold, unreadable. The cub did not belong yet. His survival depended not on his strength, but on her shield. The cub crept from his mother's side, curiosity gnawing sharper than fear. He stepped into the open, paws sinking into damp earth, his head tilting. The pride's lionesses watched with still eyes, tails flicking lazily. One growled, deep and warning. The cub flinched, then whispered, "I'm not afraid." His voice was small, his body shaking. His mother's eyes followed, fierce but silent. The elder male rumbled, chest deep like thunder, and the cub stumbled back. His innocence was a wound bleeding in the open. A lioness hissed, teeth bared, and the cub scrambled behind his mother's tail. The pride shifted, restless, the air heavy with unspoken judgment. He was fragile, untested, and survival was not promised to the weak. The cub's chest heaved, eyes wide. He knew he was tolerated, not accepted. His fight for belonging had begun. The cub stumbled into play, biting at his mother's tail, swatting clumsily at passing shadows. His laughter was soft growls, high and broken. His mother tolerated him, her eyes half closed, a flicker of softness hidden beneath scars. He pounced at her paw, falling face first into grass. She nudged him upright, her muzzle brushing against his head. He said, "I can fight." She rumbled low, not in agreement, but in patience. A lioness nearby sneered, tail lashing in disapproval. The cub ignored her, tumbling into the warmth of his mother's fur. For a moment, the world was not cruel. It was a lesson wrapped in love and silence. He pressed his ear against her chest, listening to her heartbeat, steady as earth itself. It was the only rhythm he trusted, the anchor that kept him from drowning in fear. Night fell again, stars scattered like broken glass across the sky. The cub curled into his mother's belly, her warmth a shield against the chill. Around them the pride slept in uneasy silence, tails twitching, breaths heavy. The cub whispered, "Will I live?" His mother's eyes opened, glowing faintly in starlight. She said nothing. The silence pressed heavier than thunder. Above, an owl called, its cry echoing over the endless plain. The cub buried his face deeper into her fur, clinging to her scent, to the fragile comfort that tomorrow might come. His small body rose and fell with shallow breaths, fighting sleep. His mother's paw rested gently on his back, heavy yet protective. He closed his eyes, but fear lingered. Dreams were not safe. Even in rest, the world demanded his courage. The sun baked the savannah, stripping it of shade and mercy. The cub staggered after his mother, ribs faintly visible beneath damp fur. His paws dragged, small body shaking with hunger. She slowed only once, eyes flicking back before pressing on. The herd ahead was distant, a blur of brown and dust. The cub whispered, "I cannot." His voice cracked, thin as dry grass. His mother growled low, warning him, not comforting. The ground shimmered with heat, every breath thick with dust. His belly cramped, a hollow ache that twisted deeper than fear. He stumbled, falling face first, and forced himself upright. The savanna offered no pity, no pause. The cub's steps were slow, but each one was defiance. He had no choice but to move forward. The cub crept closer to the herd, eyes wide, body low in tall grass. His mother crouched beside him, muscles coiled. She whispered in silence, her body teaching what words could not. The cub's heart thundered, his tail twitching nervously. An antelope lifted its head, ears pricked, and he froze. His breath caught, paws trembling. His mother lunged first, exploding from grass with violent grace. The herd scattered, hooves crashing like drums. The cub leapt clumsily, paws flailing, his body betraying him. He landed hard, face pressed into dirt, watching prey vanish into dust. He growled, a pitiful sound, more frustration than threat. His mother snarled at the retreating herd, her chest heaving. He had failed, and the land reminded him survival was not gifted. It was earned painfully. Night fell, and the savanna burned with strange sounds. Hyenas laughed in the dark, their voices sharp and cruel. The cub pressed against his mother, ears flat, trembling. Her eyes glowed, fierce and unblinking, staring into shadows. A shape moved, teeth glinting pale in starlight. The cub whimpered, "They are coming." His mother's growl rumbled, steady, protective. The hyenas circled, eyes gleaming, their bodies twitching with hunger. The cub pressed lower to ground, his tail tucked beneath him. The tension snapped like wire as one lunged forward. His mother roared, charging with savage fury, scattering them into the night. The cub stayed frozen, chest pounding, eyes wet with terror. Tonight was not about prey. It was about survival. The rain returned, harder than before, pounding earth into rivers of mud. The cub sank with each step, paws heavy, fur plastered to skin. His mother dragged herself forward, ribs rising with effort. Hunger gnawed deeper, sharper than the storm. The cub gasped, "I cannot breathe." The wind tore his words away, carrying them into darkness. Lightning cracked, blinding, revealing vultures perched, waiting. He stumbled into a shallow pool, water splashing, choking him with cold. His mother yanked him upright with a rough nudge. She growled low, eyes fierce even as her body shook. He coughed, spitting mud, chest heaving. The storm did not care. The land did not care. The cub pressed forward, each step a battle against weight, weather, and despair. The dawn broke gray, the sky bruised with storm's retreat. The cub lay curled against his mother, too weak to rise. His ribs pressed sharply beneath thin fur, his breath shallow. She nudged him, gentle but firm, her eyes commanding. He whispered faintly, "I cannot move." Her growl rolled low, shaking him more than the cold. The savanna stretched empty, no prey, only silence. A rival lioness approached, her eyes sharp, her body sleek with strength. The cub's mother rose, stepping between them, her body trembling but unyielding. The rival hissed, circling like smoke. The cub whimpered, pressing his face into dirt. His mother's roar split the morning, raw and defiant. He realized then, her strength was his shield, but also his burden. Without her, he was nothing. The cub limped beside his mother, hunger still tearing at him, when he saw her falter. Her paw dragged, her breath harsh. He whispered, "You are tired." She said nothing, but her eyes glowed with pain hidden for days. Her strength had been armor, but now it cracked. The cub froze, heart slamming, realizing the shield he trusted was mortal. A scar reopened on her side, blood staining fur dark. The truth struck him harder than the storm. His mother was not unbreakable. She was flesh, fragile as him. He whimpered, pressing close. She growled, but it was weak. The cub's world tilted. The indestructible had become vulnerable. The rival lioness appeared again, her eyes sharp, her body sleek. The cub bristled weakly, standing before his wounded mother. His tiny voice cracked, "Stay back!" The rival hissed, circling, tail lashing like a whip. But she did not strike. Instead, she lowered her head and backed away, gaze fixed on the cub. He trembled, unable to understand. His mother's growl was faint, yet the rival retreated further. The cub blinked, stunned. He had been shielded by her presence all along, but now, even wounded, she commanded space. The rival was not predator here, but witness. The cub's place in the world had shifted. That night, the cub heard whispers of hunger ripple through the pride. Lionesses prowled restless, eyes gleaming in firelight from the horizon's distant storm. He saw one glance at him, sharp, cold, calculating. He whispered, "They would take me." His mother's tail brushed him close, her body trembling with weakness. But her eyes never blinked. The cub understood. The threat was not only outside. It lived among them. Betrayal waited, born of desperation. The pride was no family. It was a battlefield of need. His innocence cracked further. The cub pressed into her chest, listening to her heartbeat, knowing that safety was only borrowed time. At dawn, the cub watched his mother limp toward a watering hole. The ground cracked with drought, reflecting her fading strength. He followed, paws dragging. As she drank, blood spread across the water, blooming red. He gasped, "You are dying." Her eyes flicked to him, fierce, unyielding, refusing weakness even in truth. He trembled, heart shattering with understanding. She was teaching him not survival, but inheritance. Her strength was finite, but her lessons were forever. The cub bowed his head, not from fear but from grief. The truth was no longer hidden. Her sacrifice had already begun. The savannah fell silent as vultures circled overhead. The cub crouched beside his mother, his small body pressed to hers. She whispered with her eyes, though no words came, "He must stand alone." A shadow moved in tall grass. Hyenas. Their laughter broke the air, jagged and cruel. The cub's chest clenched, but he did not hide. His mother rose weakly, her scar bleeding, and snarled one last warning. He whispered, "I will not leave you." The truth burned in him now. Survival meant sacrifice. Her fight was not only for herself, but for him. And her time was almost gone. The hyenas closed in, teeth flashing white under storm clouds. The cub pressed low, heart pounding like war drums. His mother staggered forward, scar bleeding fresh, her roar tearing the air apart. Lightning split the sky, shadows twisting across the savannah. The cub whispered, "Do not leave me." She charged, her body weak but unyielding, scattering the first wave of snapping jaws. Mud flew as claws raked, blood splattering grass. The cub's vision blurred, fear choking him. He pressed his paws deeper into wet earth, trembling, unable to look away. The law of nature crashed down like thunder. This was not defense, it was war. The clash erupted, teeth against teeth, claws against flesh. The lioness roared, slamming one hyena into the ground, blood spraying. The cub yelped as another lunged near, jaws snapping close to his ear. He leapt back, paws clumsy, terror clawing his chest. His mother's growl shook the air, warning, desperate. She fought like fire, but her legs buckled with pain. The cub cried, "No!" His small voice vanished in the storm's howl. The pack circled, relentless, their laughter sharp and cruel. Cub's eyes stung with rain and tears. His world was a blur of red and black, of strength breaking and death pressing closer. The lioness fell hard, her flank slamming into mud. Hyenas swarmed, snapping, tearing. The cub's scream split the air, high and broken. He lunged forward, tiny claws slashing, a pitiful growl rising from his throat. One hyena snapped back, surprised, its yellow eyes gleaming. The cub stumbled, his paw sinking deep into mud, body trembling. His mother surged again, teeth ripping flesh, roaring defiance through blood. She said nothing, but her body screamed sacrifice. The cub gasped, realizing she fought not for her, but for him. His innocence shattered completely. He was no longer only watching survival. He was bound to it, branded by it. The storm screamed louder, wind tearing grass flat. The lioness dragged herself upright, blood dripping, eyes blazing. She threw her body into the largest hyena, jaws locking on its throat. They rolled, mud flying, bones cracking. The cub froze, chest hammering, then whispered, "Please, stop." But the fight was unstoppable, brutal, final. Her roar echoed, shaking the night, as if the earth itself mourned. She tore the hyena down, collapsing with it, both sinking into blood-stained mud. The others snarled, hesitating, their laughter faltering. The cub's breath caught. His mother lay still, her eyes dimming, her body broken. The Savannah fell silent in grief. The cub crawled to her side, pressing his tiny head into her chest. Her heartbeat was faint, fading. She lifted her gaze, amber eyes soft despite blood. She said nothing, but her stare spoke. Endure. Hyenas slunk back, cowed by her final strike, their laughter gone. The cub sobbed, a broken sound swallowed by rain. He whispered, "Do not leave me." Her paw twitched, touching him once, then stilled. The storm roared, lightning carving the sky as silence filled the ground. The cub trembled, his small frame against her lifeless body. Survival had demanded its price. The world had stolen his shield, and now only he remained. The storm broke at dawn, leaving the savannah washed in pale gold. The cub lay pressed against his mother's still body, fur soaked, eyes hollow. He whispered, "Wake up." No answer came. Her chest no longer rose, her warmth already fading. The cub trembled, paws kneading at her flank, as if to stir life back. Around them, silence spread heavier than thunder. Vultures circled above, patient, their shadows cutting across his face. The cub pressed closer, refusing the truth pressing into his bones. The shield that had carried him was gone, and now he was naked in the world's merciless gaze. The vultures landed nearby, wings heavy, beaks glinting. The cub hissed, his tiny growl thin but defiant. He stood over her body, trembling, tail stiff, amber eyes wide with rage. "She is mine," he whispered, voice cracking. The birds hopped closer, hungry, indifferent. The cub lashed out with claws, swiping air, stumbling forward. His body shook, but his cry echoed sharp across the plain. For a moment, the vultures hesitated. His chest swelled with something raw, survival, shaping his tiny frame. Yet the truth lingered. He was one heartbeat away from joining her. His fight was small, but it was everything. The pride returned, their silhouettes framed against rising sun. Lionesses padded closer, their eyes sharp, unreadable. The cub froze, pressed low, fear gnawing. He whispered, "Will they take me?" His mother's absence was a hole in the earth, and he stood at its edge. A lioness sniffed the air, her gaze settling on the cub. Another growled low, tail flicking with impatience. The cub trembled, claws digging into mud. His heart pounded with memories of betrayal. Yet none struck. They circled the fallen mother, silent, their faces marked not with pity, but with recognition. For the first time the cub stood alone, and they watched. One lioness stepped forward, her eyes locked on the cub. He pressed lower, tail tucked, ears flat. She sniffed him, her breath warm against his trembling fur. He whimpered, "I am small." Her stare was cold, yet she turned away, padding back into grass. The others followed, their shapes dissolving into horizon. The cub blinked, stunned. They had left him, not taken him. His chest swelled with fragile relief, yet it cut deeper. Abandoned, not spared. The world had carved another scar across his heart. He looked to his mother's body, eyes burning, whispering, "What now?" The only answer was silence. The cub sat alone, the sun climbing higher, drying his fur to a dull sheen. His mother's body lay still, her shadow fading as light grew. He whispered, "I will endure." The words were fragile, yet they carried weight beyond his size. He rose on unsteady paws, chest small but lifted. Hunger gnawed, grief tore, yet something new burned faint in his eyes. He stepped away from her body, each movement slow, deliberate, carrying the weight of her sacrifice. The savanna stretched endless before him, cruel and magnificent. He was not ready, but he had no choice. The law of survival was now his own. The cub walked through tall grass, his paws sinking softly into earth, still damp from storm. Behind him, his mother's body lay distant, fading into memory. He whispered, "I will remember." His voice broke, swallowed by wind. The savanna stretched endless, golden and cruel. He pressed forward, small frame fragile against horizon's immensity. Each step carved silence deeper, each breath pulled grief further into his chest. He was too small for this world, yet it was now his. The grass whispered around him like ghosts, brushing his fur with echoes of her sacrifice. The cub lifted his head toward the sky, where vultures circled high, their wings black against pale light. He whispered, "You cannot have me." His tiny growl was swallowed by the distance, but his chest lifted with defiance. Hunger twisted inside him, grief burned in his eyes, yet his paws did not falter. He stepped forward, amber gaze locked on horizon. The world would not pity him, but it would not break him yet. His breath shook, but it carried weight beyond his size. He was still here. As night fell, the cub crouched alone beneath a thorn tree, stars piercing black sky above. The wind carried hyena laughter faint in distance, sharp reminders of blood. He pressed low, ears flat, body trembling, whispering, "I am afraid." His voice cracked, but he did not run. Fear no longer ruled him, it walked beside him, shaping his steps. The world outside the tree was merciless, but inside his chest, a flicker of fire burned. It was small, fragile, but it was his. The cub dreamed of her again, her amber eyes, her roar cutting storms apart, her body shielding him from jaws. He whispered in sleep, "Stay." When dawn came, he woke to silence, the grass cold against his fur. She was gone, only memory left, but her strength lingered like heartbeat. He rose unsteady, shaking, but with eyes that no longer looked backward. Her death was carved into him, not as an end, but as command. Survive. The savanna stilled, endless and vast. The cub stood alone at its heart, wind brushing his fur, amber eyes unblinking. He whispered, "I remain." His voice was sharp, unforgettable, a cry against eternity. Silence pressed in after, heavy and final. The vultures wheeled far above, the hyenas slunk into distance, the pride unseen. The world was no gentler, no kinder. Yet the cub's shadow stretched long across grass, a mark of defiance. His mother was gone, but her echo lived in him,